Sorry for the delay. I had to get logged into Facebook on this machine. I thought I was logged in, but we are now live on Facebook. Welcome everyone to Wealth Building Wednesdays. We have a fantastic panel for you tonight and a fantastic topic, Pathways to Generational Wealth. My name is Tracy Howard. I'm the manager of the Financial Empowerment Center, and we are pleased to share this program in partnership with Fifth Third Bank. And we have two of our Fifth Third Bank partners here tonight. You'll hear from at least one of them in just a moment. But before we get started with our program, I'd just like to share with you a little bit of background on the Financial Empowerment Center. The Financial Empowerment Center, our goal is to, or our mission, I should say, is to help Black and underserved communities to reach their very best financial level and to grow toward and advance towards financial freedom. We do this within three separate pillars. And I'll share my screen with you and share that with you now so that I can discuss it more easily. Okay, so the Financial Empowerment Center, we have three service pillars: financial education, financial coaching, and then community outreach and subsistence supports. Under financial education, we have Wealth Building Wednesdays, which you're here tonight with us. Thank you for joining us. We're so pleased that you came. We have Black Men and Money, which we are relaunching next month on June 27th. You'll be hearing more about that. We have home ownership seminars, and then Financial Health 101, which is the linchpin of our financial literacy education curriculum. We have one-on-one financial coaching available, and then something that we will be launching brand new in July that I'm very excited about is the 700 Club. This will be focused on individuals who want to increase their credit score. And we will be sharing more about that through email and other communications, and we welcome you to join us for that. Our third service pillar is our community outreach. If you were here in April, you might have been able to participate in Avondale Empowerment Day. And then we have Project Lift, which is focused on providing direct service supports. So that's all I wanted to share about the Financial Empowerment Center. I would like to now kick it over to our partner from Fifth Third Bank, Royce Sutton, Senior Vice President. Royce.
Tracy, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I know we've got a lot of people from a number of places on this call today, Tracy. And if I had the benefit of having people to raise their hand, whether you're right here in Ohio or you're from outside of Ohio, I'd like to see people wave their hands, but I can't do that. I don't. So they'll just have to I'll just have to take it that they are acknowledging that this is a great event. We've got some individuals on this call today, Tracy, who are here because they want to hear from some wonderfully accomplished ladies in business, in industry, who are going to bring it today. They're going to bring it with this discussion on how to build a financial future, thinking about a legacy. And these ladies have set the course, that they've done the work. They have paved the way for so many, and they're going to take up their time today and share that with us. So Fifth Third Bank is excited to be a partner with the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio in this great event that we call Wealth Building Wednesday. It is the idea that if we sit down together and really give thoughtful consideration and draw up on the wisdom that is going to be in this room today, we're going to be much stronger. We're going to be better. We're going to find ourselves in a position where we leave a legacy for generations to come. So why wouldn't Fifth Third want to be a part of this? Why wouldn't we want to be a part of something like this, where we are investing $20 million in 9 neighborhoods, where we're taking our financial empowerment tools into the community, where we're making opportunities happen for Black businesses? This is a part of that effort. So tonight, as we listen to all of these exciting presenters that are going to be here, I'm going to have my notepad out. And everybody that's on this line here, I know you're going to have yours out as well. I'm looking forward to hearing some things that are going to come out to make me stronger, make me wiser in this step toward providing a legacy. There is nothing wrong with wealth. If we don't hear that once, we're going to probably hear it more. There's nothing wrong with wealth at all. We're in a position, the best position we've probably been in a very long time, to create generational wealth through our collective efforts and our individual efforts. So this discussion that we're going to have here is, yes, it's going to be a powerful one, but it's the start of for us individually and collectively coming together and with a made-up mind deciding that this is something that is in the best interest of us. If we want to be homeowners, if we want to be business owners, if we want to be entrepreneurs, or we want to move up the scale in our various companies, this is going to be a great place, a great conversation. We're going to reserve some time, and they're going to talk about, give to people to ask some opportunity to ask questions. But this is the opportunity for us to really do some great things. So again, I want to say thank you to everyone who is on this call as a participant, but those who are speaking today, those who are going to share with us. I can't express my gratitude enough for the efforts that you are taking this time out to carve out to have this discussion with us today. So I'm gonna tamp down here, let the program run, let you guys do what you need to do. I may be the only male in the room, but that's okay. I feel comfortable. We got some beautiful ladies here. I feel at home. I'm going to sit back and
Yes.
so let us do this thing. All right. So ladies, if we're going to roll out the carpet, allow you to go ahead and do your thing, but go ahead and make it happen for us this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Royce, for those kind words and for bringing the personality. And we love testosterone here. So we are glad that you are with us tonight. When I was talking about the Financial Empowerment Center, I forgot to mention 2 wonderful, wonderful team members who are with us here tonight. Dominique Broomfield, who will be monitoring Facebook and helping us to manage that process, and Destiny Simone. Say hi, guys. Destiny Simone will be monitoring our Zoom chat.
Hi.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. They put forth tremendous effort at all times, and I love having them on the team. So just a quick few housekeeping notes to help things to go smoothly as we get ready to start our program. Please mute your phones to eliminate any background noises and distractions. And if at all possible, please turn on your cameras. We love to see your amazing faces, and that makes the event more engaging. And please, please participate in the discussion by sharing your questions and comments on Zoom and on Facebook Live. And please, those of you who are on Facebook, share this event with your friends and family. Everyone will enjoy this content tonight. Your engagement is very important to us. As I shared, Destiny and Dominique will be capturing your questions, and we're going to take not 1, but 2 breaks tonight to make sure that your voices are heard. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening. I wish I had a drum roll. I'd like to introduce my boss, Ebony Young, Senior Vice President of Impact at the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. Ebony, take us away.
Well, thank you, Tracy. That was very sweet. And thank you, Royce, for your wonderful words of wisdom and your partnership. You know, this is a necessary work that we're doing. So thank you so much to you and your team and Fifth Third Bank for your commitment to the community and demonstrating that in action by, making the necessary investment. So also, I am honored just to be a part of the Urban League as Senior Vice President of Impact. I have oversight into most of the programmatic efforts that touches our community in a variety of different ways. And the Financial Empowerment Center is one of them. So thank you, Tracy, Dominique, and Destiny for doing the work and allowing this moment to happen. I am honored and humbled by this opportunity to be in the presence of such a power-packed panel. These are dynamic women, y'all. These are women that are going to bring it, that have lived experience, business experience, and just a wealth of knowledge that is really going to help move us forward. Even in this call, I believe that everybody is going to leave the call changed and different. I think that everyone is going to really, and I shouldn't say call, Zoom, but I think everyone, at the end of the day, everyone is going to leave changed, and I'm really excited about that. So without further ado, I do want to jump into the conversation. We are excited to bring forth tonight a panel of truly accomplished women who will be sharing their wisdom and insight as we discuss the pathways to generational wealth. So I'm going to kick it off to our women to introduce themselves, and we're going to go alphabetically by first name. So Brandy, you are first, and then we're going to pass it to Charlotte, then Jackie, then Janelle, then Pat. But if you guys get mixed up, I will remind you. So Brandy, if you can kick us off, just share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, thank you, Ebony. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Brandy McCaster, and I am the principal realtor with the Bonafide Group. We are a Black-owned real estate group here in Cincinnati. We service the whole area where we tend to see that people need service, people that are underserved. So we are in commercial real estate, residential real estate. We kind of cover the whole sector. So I am here as your real estate professional to kind of help guide this and answer some questions that you all may have.
All right, thank you so much, Brandy. All right, and up next we have Charlotte.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Charlotte Harris, and I am the Vice President of Business Development and Entrepreneurship at the Urban League. I just want to thank Ebony, my colleague, and all of my Urban League colleagues for the invitation here. It's great to meet these dynamic women in the audience, so thank you very much for the invitation. Our business development and entrepreneurship division is a pathway to wealth management and wealth creation, and our mission really is to really assist and help aspiring entrepreneurs establish startup and scalable businesses to take advantage of new business opportunities and to think about wealth creation. So we do our best to really change lives in this way. So we're really excited to share, the opportunities and programs. I'm just great. We have a wonderful team that supports advisors, coaches, serial entrepreneurs that cover both the Cincinnati and Dayton and Southwest Ohio regions. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. Next we have Jackie.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Jackie Gamblin. I am the CEO and founder of JYG Innovations. We are in the information technology space, focused on providing enterprise solutions. That's design, development, sustainment, deployment of solutions, primarily in the defense sector. It's just a pleasure to be here this evening. I look forward to talking with you and sharing all of the lessons learned, the good and the bad, just sharing that to hopefully be able to help someone. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Next up, we have Janelle.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, good evening. My name is Janelle Ross, and I'm the president of the Bob Ross Auto Group in Centerville, Ohio. We represent Buick, GMC, and Mercedes-Benz. We've been in business for 49 years. I am the only second-generation African-American female automobile dealer in the country, unfortunately. The bright spot is we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. And my dad was actually the first African-American Mercedes-Benz dealer in the country as well, back in 1979. So I've been through a lot, looking forward to gaining a few nuggets myself from my fellow panelists, and welcome and just glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Pat?
Hello, I'm Pat Brady, and I am president and founder of Quest Management Consulting. I retired from corporate 20 years ago, and I retired because I wanted to undertake a mission to help my community, that I wanted to build sustainable opportunities within our community by working through our not-for-profit communities who are often a way in for members of our community. So I have done that for 20 years. And in that work, I do my individual community building through the Urban League's African American Leadership Development Program, which I am in my 8th year of facilitating that 10-month adventure. And if you're interested, we're taking applications for class number 30 right as we speak. And the other part of my work is I work with the Workforce Council, and thereby helping unemployed and underemployed people of color find ways to sustainable in-demand businesses and career paths. So it is my honor to be here among these wonderful women this evening, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. So like Royce, I'll have my notepad out too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat, for that. And okay, so one thing that Roy said that I thought was so powerful is that there is nothing wrong with wealth. There is nothing wrong with it. So as a reminder, our topic tonight is pathways to generational wealth. And we're going to have a lot of good discussion about past, present, and future, and what we need to do to get on the path to break generational poverty and get on the path of economic self-sufficiency and ultimately generational wealth. And this discussion is for everybody on the socioeconomic scale. Everyone can benefit from this discussion. So if you have questions, I encourage you to lift them up in the chat. And also take notes, because these are valuable jewels that will be given to us. And after that, the charge will be to take action. So with that said, as we talk about building the pathways to generational wealth, I think that it is important to also talk about where we came from and the historical health disparities that we as women have experienced in particular. So I want to target this first question to Pat and Charlotte. And the question is related to the historical and systemic factors that have played into the significant role in wealth disparities. My question is, how can we learn from the past and work towards breaking down these barriers to create a more equitable future for Black women and their families? Ms. Pat, would you like to kick us off?
I certainly will be happy to do that. And I think we remember by going back and making sure that we remember those historic and systemic factors we're still working through today. Thank God we have been strong enough to overcome many of them, but many of the same factors that were a factor 100 years ago are still factors today. We began with the ever-present slavery and the Jim Crow era. We also have issues of wage disparities and occupational segregation. We have limited access to quality education, discrimination in the workplace. Then we had the pandemic arrive, and it exacerbated what we already knew were glaring deficiencies within our healthcare system. We paid the ultimate price in many ways for the lack of preparation for the pandemic to hit us, and for the way our community was already behind the 8 ball before the pandemic arrived. All of those factors together create the generational wealth gap that we are talking about. And so to remember that these things are still present with us. They are still factors as we move forward. We have definitely been able to move the needle, thank God, because this wonderful panel would not be here had we not been successful in moving the needle. But let us not forget, many of the same issues that our mothers and our grandmothers and their grandmothers fought for are still present in our reality today. So I'll toss it off to Charlotte, and then we can tandem. Charlotte and I've tandem before, so Charlotte, I'll pass it over to you, and then I'll take it back if there's anything else left to say.
I totally agree. Thanks, Pat. I want to mention, talk about history. 1974, an important year because that was the year of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, and it was at the time when women were commonly discriminated against applying for financial products like loans. The passage of that act, women were able to apply for credit cards in their own name, regardless of their marital status. I want to share, this is personal because in the 70s, I can remember my mother was one of those women who I remember she told my brother and I that we were moving and she had bought some land and was building a home. And she was able to apply and get a loan. And we watched that house being built, and you talk about generational wealth and so that we could go to a better school. And over the years, my mother had bought property, and even to this day, we inherited property from her as a way to create wealth in terms of real estate. But it's because of the opportunity particularly, it was harder for Black women during that time to be able to get, and I remember the story. And so when I thought about sharing, we talk about history and, obviously systemic racism and sexism that created disparities of wealth and income for Black women. It still exists. I saw some data that I read that research shows that Black women face 90% wealth gap, and their earnings gap drives 2/3 of the divide. Black women lost $907,680 over a 40-year career because of the earnings gap. And we need to know that this is still, an issue. And so just to share the fact that there are different definitions of, wealth management and wealth creation, but there are a lot of women that are heads of household as well.
I'd also like to add that in Cincinnati, we break the national average by about 72% of African-American households that are single-parent households are headed by women. And within that number, at the time when predatory lending was such a huge negative issue, a lot of those predatory loans went to African-American female head of households. And you know what happens when you destabilize African-American women? You destabilize our families and our communities. So we are still struggling to come back from some of that. Then we get hit with a pandemic. And so many of our women were out in service industries. And for those who did not get ill, a lot of their jobs just went away. And they were left trying to find a way where there was no apparent way through the craziness of those 2 years when things were so very, very difficult. But we get by how we've always gotten by. We make a way out of no way by partnering with our sister friends, by pairing up with other mothers and other families who need help in sharing that help. That's our way through business too. That's one approach, not the only approach, but it certainly is one of our ways through.
Yeah, so, what I'm hearing is some of these things that we were facing, before are still prevalent today. And when we talk about, the wage gap or the earnings gap, these are significant challenges that we are still facing now. What are some other significant challenges that Black women face in building generational wealth, and how can we overcome them?
We face challenges in building generational wealth because we've been in a survival mode for so long, just trying to pay the bills. I have friends who work 2 and 3 jobs just to keep a roof over the heads of their families. So the thought of generational wealth is not an easy conversation for them because they just have enough to get by. There are too many of us that are in those places. And so therefore, institutions like the Urban League that offers us a way up and a way out are more critical to our building our generational wealth, because we've got to stabilize the now. We've got to stop worrying about, do I have enough just to put food on the table? Once we can get past the survival metrics, then we can start the conversation of, how do I get a better job? How do I not lose my benefits? How do I work through the issues that keep me in this small box? And how do I get better education? How can I move into certifications if college isn't possible, and into sustainable in-demand employment that I can really make a living wage? So many of our families are not making a living wage, and that makes it very difficult.
And there's many paths to get there, right?
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it's through the traditional, you know, if you want to go the corporate route, or there's an entrepreneurial route as well. But when you talk about the survivor mode piece, you know, that's real. And think about the mental health component, the stress that has, and that impacts, you know, our ability to function as women. So you have to overlay that, and that becomes more and more complicated, and it begins to snowball, right? So as we're trying to think about kind of breaking through that barrier to get on the path, you know, how do we get there? Two things I want to focus on is entrepreneurship, and also, you know, if someone does not want to go the entrepreneurial route, you know, and if they want to just, you know, make the investment in going back to school or their career, how can they do that in a very strategic and meaningful way? So I want to start to talk about mentorship and networking, and I want to kick this question to Janelle and Jackie. In a workplace, we know there are just, whether it's workplace or whether, you know, it's, you know, you have an entrepreneur venture, whatever it is, we know that networking and mentorship is so important and can play a critical role, whether you have an entrepreneurial endeavor or whether you're just trying to progress within an organization. Mentorship and networking often plays a crucial role in career advancement. So what strategies have you found effective in cultivating like strong professional networks and finding mentors who help propel your wealth building journey? I will kick that off to Janelle. You can go.
Okay, I didn't know who wanted to go first. You know, something for me that has always worked is, and it's not always comfortable because at times we have to make ourselves be in uncomfortable situations in order to learn and grow and navigate through the good old boys network. So it can be a very daunting task, but it's something that definitely I've just learned over time that you have to persevere and keep moving, because that could be definitely some of where your best advocates, unbeknownst to you, may come from. You know, in regards to mentors, you know, I'm in a predominantly white male driven industry. And, you know, to say that I would love to say that all my mentors were women and people of color. But there's also a realistic fashion with that as well. And it really comes down to, for me, of trusting people and finding someone that that can advocate for you, regardless of what color they look like. Even though I have African-American women, men, and white women that I rely on in my network. But the key thing is to really find that advocate and that person or persons that you feel comfortable with, that you can have those conversations that you don't want spread out, you know, around in your business or within your industry, so that you can continue to learn and grow. And I do feel that that's the most important thing of us realizing as Black women, that we're always put on the defensive, unfortunately, and we're not wanting to be in that role. But if we can, you know, use it to our best advantage in regards to really finding and growing where we can go in terms of building our wealth.
Mhm. And I think that's an important point that you bring up as far as being uncomfortable. So one thing my husband always says is that you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And I'm sure that it may create a level of discomfort in some people to even go out to try
Correct.
to foster and build those relationships, to go outside the box. So, it takes courage. And like you said, it takes you just kind of stepping outside your comfort zone to make that happen. And also recognizing that there are going to be possible mentors out there that don't look like you,
Correct.
but that may be just as well committed to your development. So I think that that's a great call out. Thank you for that. All right, Jackie, what are your thoughts on this?
No, I think you guys, thank you, Janelle. You really teed that off well because, and Ebony, I think, I'd follow up when we talk about that discomfort. I started off, in corporate America, and I can remember the first time I really had that opportunity for that big job, the next step in my career. And I was not familiar with how to negotiate. And I think, that being uncomfortable with what to ask for, being uncomfortable with how to advocate for myself. And I think back to that time, if someone had not pulled me aside and said, hey, you've got to step up. If you don't ask, they're not going to give it to you. It would have changed the whole trajectory of my career, because at that time I had a boss who wasn't going to give $1 more or one benefit more than they had to. And it was really, really critical. So I think getting comfortable with that and getting comfortable with what you don't know. I think a lot of times we're just hesitant to admit that we may not know something. We may not have all the information in a particular area. And as an entrepreneur, when I talk about tell everyone who's starting a business, I talk about those key relationships. We have Fifth Third Bank, your banking relationship, and that starts off with your personal finances, right? I mean, getting to know your bank, letting your bank get to know you. So if you have a need that you're not some stranger coming in off the street, you've already laid the groundwork. The other is, we talk about, taxes, and tax law is complicated. So, finding a good accountant, again, starting off with that personal accountant, making sure you're doing your taxes on your own. It's okay if you're using, TurboTax or some other things, but sometimes questions come up and, sometimes we just ignore it, right? We don't really understand what it means, but, oh, that looks like what everyone told me they put. Dig a little deeper, because you'll never know when that information will be helpful for you, further in your career. And then the last one is always that legal relationship. Again, a lot of things, require, we're going to talk later, I know, about estate planning, but a lot of questions that come up with, how do I plan to leave something for the next generation? I think it was it Pat or Charlotte who talked about her mother, purchasing land and being able to pass that along to the next generation. That's critical. I'm sure she probably had some legal advice along the way that says, here's how you should position yourself to make sure you leave a legacy. So I just think, again, getting comfortable with what you don't know and asking the right questions and finding those trusted sources or advocates, or mentors who can help guide you on the journey as you're trying to build wealth is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think all of that is amazing. Going back to your first point about negotiating, I think it's important that we advocate for ourselves. We often don't do that, especially when it comes to, getting jobs and new jobs and negotiating job offers. And, one thing that my boss, often says is, you are the prize, right? So we need to, come to those tables in a position and posture of power, right? And understanding our worth and what we bring to the table, and not being afraid to negotiate that. First and foremost, get curious and educate yourself on what the market says.
Right.
You're not trying to get all crazy, you want to make sure that you are equipped with that knowledge as well. And I like what you talked about with regards to, making sure that you have people in place to know the things that you don't know. right?
Mhm.
So, when you talk about, the attorneys or getting your taxes, is really getting curious, right? Because you don't have to know everything. We can't
Right.
know everything. It's impossible. But it's really connecting with the people that do and utilize those resources to your advantage. And oftentimes, some of those people are really open and there's resources online. And there are just some people that are just willing to just share the knowledge because they want to share that. So I think that those are excellent points. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to segue into entrepreneurship. As we know, entrepreneurship is on the rise, and I'm sure that Charlotte has all of the facts and data about that in our area. So Charlotte, I want to talk to you about this. So entrepreneurship has been a path to success for many Black women. So what advice do you have for aspiring Black female entrepreneurs looking to build wealth and leave a lasting legacy?
This is an exciting topic because nationally, the largest growing demographic of entrepreneurs are Black women. And some of them, there's different definitions of startups. So there could be startups that are folks coming from corporate America who have decided, or government, that they decided that they want to take the talents that they have and to be able to own, operate, and control their own destiny and their dreams of economic empowerment and wealth. And then there's some who are innovative, that have innovative technology or, like artificial intelligence, and they are creative folks and they want to be able to start a business. I know there was something mentioned about mentorship, but I just want to make a point is that surround yourself, do the research. I think the most important thing is you're getting ready to start a business is to really decide, where will you fit in terms of industry? What are you, what marketplace, and do your homework to say, okay, even if you're just trying to get a piece of that big pie, whether it's regionally, locally, nationally, even if they're thinking big in terms of globally, like, Janelle in the auto industry, which is huge. How will you make an impact enough to take care of yourself and your family and make a difference, job creating, being able to create jobs? But I would start by saying, making a plan. Building wealth starts with making a plan. And most important is to also, a plan that has to do with your personal finance as well as your business finance. You want to not commingle them, but to also think about building wealth is what's your vision? What's your dream, and dream big. And it's not easy, but try to get the buy-in of your loved ones to support you. And if not, surround yourself with creating your own advisory committee, those people that like, and trust, that believe in your dream and your vision. And begin thinking about a budget. How much do you want to really, what's your dream? What does success look like in terms of, making, wealth creation? It may not that you initially, if you have a dream or you want to be in a certain industry, do you know someone in that industry, and maybe get a job in that industry to really understand how they got started? Some of those industry, and sort of build it, try to automate. I think it's most important is to really, we got a lot of technology here to really, and many of us use mobile technology. So there's a lot of technology to help you really get a lot of that. And I'd say connect with us. We are an entrepreneurship center that has folks who are certified business advisors. And whether you are aspiring, you have an idea, you want to flesh it out, we offer free business assistance and coaching. You can contact us on the Urban League's website to set up a one-on-one confidential. We offer workshops. We partner like this workshop. Ebony and I partner on programming, and we have some really great for women, for Black women. We've launched some programs and partnerships with Walmart for women in retail. We have an African American business development program for businesses. So there's cohort, but if you're interested in getting certified locally, through the state, contact us, because if we don't know it, we have subject matter experts that can help you get there. So this is a great time to be an entrepreneur, and even if you don't want to give up your job and you just want a gig, there's a whole growth in the gig economy. And we offer resources like that can support you as well.
Thank you, Charlotte, for that. And I know that you and your team has done a lot of amazing work. You are the #1 in the nation, is my understanding. And,
Yeah, I was
and
just gonna say, the Urban League has 90 affiliates, and this Southwest Ohio Entrepreneurship Center is one of 13 in the nation. So it's, we are very proud because it's because of the people that we serve. It's because of the community, it's because of the talent of the team. And it's because of the partnerships of corporations like Fifth Third and folks that believe in us. So yeah, it's a passion to want to make a difference and change lives.
Mhm. So what about those women? What advice would you have for those who are on the fence, right? Like, they want to pursue their passion, but they're still working, a 9 to 5. What advice would you have for women that they're not ready to make that full leap, but they want to, how do they get on that glide path?
I think the best way is to really sit down with a business advisor, sort of to really, put things on paper. I think attend some of the workshops. I mean, so that you can be around people who have started businesses. I think that's important as well. And it's a big difference. I think that's most important is to come and join us. I think part of it is whether it's virtual, because we realize people work. We have virtual engagements, they're in person. I think there are some folks that aren't ready to start that join us for some of the workshops. But I think most important is we can align you with a business advisor, a coach, someone that even if you're not ready, you can still have those periodic conversations to help you with a business plan. To kind of, we have templates and resources, help you with a budget. If you've got a gap and you're looking for help with, how do people find me? And I may need some help with, some tactics and strategies for marketing. We have folks that can help you with that. So you're not alone. We can connect you with someone that's in the industry you're interested in, an entrepreneur that's been successful, that maybe you could talk with them and kind of feed off of how did you get started. So we're trying to be an advocate and a connector and a convener. So those are resources. So you're not alone. You can sit down with us and we can help you along.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know that we're going to be sharing everyone's contact information, the panelists' contact information at the end, just for anyone that's interested. But Charlotte, if anyone wants more information about the services that you offer within your area, because I know you have a lot of grants and a lot of wonderful things going on, what is the best place or how should they go about getting that information?
I'll actually put it in the chat if that's okay, but they can go to our Urban League website, ulgso.org, and you'll see entrepreneurship, on the website. But that would be the quickest way. And also you could follow us on social media as well. The Urban Leagues, but I can put in the chat our link as well. You can schedule an online an appointment to meet with a business advisor just to say, hey, I'm thinking about, or I just want to flesh out an idea. So we'll make that happen with the link so that you can connect.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that.
Ebony, may I tee on to a conversation that's in the chat and several people have mentioned that I think is really, really important. And you referenced it. Charlotte referenced it. Janelle referenced it. And Jackie referenced it. Your own personal board of directors. Identify that. I did it in corporate, and not all of my directors were people that look like us, that look like me. You have to go where the information is available. And I never ask anyone to mentor me. I would say, hey, do you mind if I buy you a cup of coffee and we can sit down and have a conversation? Mentoring is a really loaded term. And if you ask that question, sometimes people, I'm too busy to do that. But if you just say, do you mind if I take you for a cup of coffee? And I would have a group of people, none of whom looked like me, but knew the business and knew the area I wanted to go into. You have to kind of go into that space. And about your personal board of directors, don't make it people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. Make it people who are going to ask you what you don't know, that are going to go after you and have you do the work and then come back and report to me. One of the members in the chat said, for folks after 50, how do you get started? I retired from corporate and then started a consulting practice. I started off by going to somebody that I thought was doing something that I was interested in doing, and I volunteered to help her. And so sometimes you have to give to get. Volunteering will tell you one of two things: that it is something I want to check more into, or it is not something I want to do. But spend some time thinking about who your personal board of directors are, or who should be on you. Because sometimes we just have friends who will tell us, oh, girl, you're doing great, it's all right, even when it's not. You want somebody who's going to tell you the truth on your personal board of directors, and identify them as that I'm trusting you to tell me the truth. So I wanted to just piggyback onto those great comments that the other ladies had made.
Yeah, I think that that is awesome advice. I was given that advice about 3 to 4 years ago, and it was really transformational. And I have been able to establish my own personal international board of directors that have very different insight, most of which who don't look like me. Some of them do, but I trust them. And I think that it can, sometimes we get stuck in our own way of thinking, and that board of directors, if you will, can expand our thinking. So thank you for lifting that up. Okay, so let's take a pause. We have shared a lot of information, and I know that there may be questions in the chat. If our audience have anything, any questions, I want to pause. And Tracy and team, is there anything in the chat that we need to address? Any questions that we have?
Yes, there's one question. It says, there is a great deal of advice for younger people just starting out. Do you have any advice for later stage entrepreneurs or second and or third stage women over 50 years old exploring new ideas?
Okay. Good question. Any of our panelists want to take that on?
I was just going to mention that, we've seen, the spectrum in terms of intergenerational, in terms of women wanting to start a business. We haven't gotten, asked, specifically someone's age when we're vetting and assessing, but I can't emphasize that this ecosystem in terms of Southwest Ohio is amazing in terms of the opportunities and resources to start a business. And I would encourage, no matter what age you are, to reach out to us, because, to really connect, because there are a lot of resources, whether you're coming out of college or, in terms of maturity. So there's no limit on that, because it really is the innovation of the entrepreneur. So don't limit yourself based on age.
Right. I think that's an awesome point. Thank you. Dominique, do we have any questions from Facebook?
So far, we don't have any questions, a lot of comments and chatting, but we like all the points being made.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I think we can just, let's keep it going. We have some more ground to cover. And one of the things that I want to talk about is real estate. So as we know, that has been a hot topic for many, many years. And I want to direct this question to Brandy. As we know, real estate has long been seen as a key investment avenue. So how can Black women leverage opportunities in the real estate market to build generational wealth and to strengthen their community?
Well, of course, I feel like real estate is one of the best tools to establish wealth, whether it's short-term real estate goals or long-term real estate goals. But it's a great way for all people to build generational wealth, especially our community, our African-American population. It has been severely underrepresented, as they made some points earlier about the disparities in the pay gap with women. That translates into the real estate world. So if you're underserved in your job and you're not being paid what you need to be paid, then it's more difficult for us to purchase houses. However, starting with home ownership, I think is a great tool to build net worth. There's so many different options that we have out there. There's a lot of information, of course, on the internet. Some of it is amazing information, and some of it gives you some of the information you need, but not a full scope picture. But starting out with just buying your first home, and understanding that first home is not going to be your dream house. That's not going to be your forever home. However, look at it as a tool. I try to explain to my first time buyers that buying your first house is a business transaction. It's not something you should get attached to. It's not something that you should plan on living in forever, but it's a business transaction to get your foot in the door. Keep that house for a couple years, 2 to 5 years, and then think about either pulling out the equity in the home to start purchasing investment real estate, or sell that house and move to something bigger, but always keep in mind that you already have your foot in the door, and these are legacies that you can leave for generations, for your children to come, however you want to leverage it. But definitely getting the full scope of information that you need to purchase a home, and talking to someone one-on-one to say, hey, what are the obstacles I need to be prepared for? How am I going to handle this investment? And what do I need to do to make sure I'm securing this forever?
Awesome. I want to go back to something you said earlier regarding short-term real estate goals versus long-term real estate goals. Can you kind of expound or elaborate on what that means?
So short-term real estate goals, I'm speaking about this in a transactional space. So are you buying your first house because that's what you want to live in? Are you buying a piece of property because you want to flip it and sell it? Or are you looking at something long-term that you're going to buy and hold and rent out over the years? So short, long-term in a transactional space.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So I want to direct this next question, Brandy. We're still keeping on real estate, so I want your insight as well. And Jackie, I'm interested in your insight on what role does real estate play in building generational wealth, and what are some essential steps African-American women should take to protect and transfer their assets effectively to their children and families?
I'll go back to my earlier point when I was talking about estate planning. And I will share, the term estate planning meant nothing to me, 10 years ago. It wasn't even something I thought about. I thought, oh, that's something, the super wealthy people do. I don't even have enough assets to really have to consider that until through, my networking, through relationship building, someone says, hey, I know a great estate planning attorney. I said, okay. They said, just have a conversation with him. And what I found interesting is that his questions were, what are you trying to do? So it wasn't, let me present this plan and dictate what steps you should take. It's first, talk to me about what's important to you. So I talked about my family. I talked about my business. I talked about my personals, where I was personally. And then he gave me all these different options, when it comes to trust or how you do debt management. These are just things that I never really thought of. And why it was important is we talk about this being a wealth journey. So it's not a point in time where you're going to make all the important decisions right now and that you never have to think about it. It really is a journey. Every step is going to influence and impact where you end up in the future. And he really helped me realize that. So it's baby steps too. I mean, I think we always tend to sell ourselves short, right? I don't have enough. I'm not big enough. My company's not big enough. My family's, no, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are right now, you can start planning. You can start making small steps that will impact your future. So I think it's just getting that education and then being willing to ask questions and talk to someone and listen. Sometimes we think we know everything. So you have to go in with an open mind and say, hey, I really want to listen. And you want to find that person who's listening to you, because I had some very particular things that were important to me, particular volunteer and nonprofit organizations that I wanted to support. I wanted to, help some kids with college. So there are things that were important to me that I really wanted someone who can understand and help me get to where I was trying to go, keep me legal, help me understand what the legal implications were. And things change so quickly. And that's my point about it's not a one-time decision, right? You want to set up periodic checks to go back and revisit, life changes, life happens. What you wanted to do 5 years ago, it may not be applicable today. So always just kind of keep those people in your circle and revisit your plan and revisit where you're going. And I just think that makes all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also it's good to have accountability as well.
Yes.
Accountability partners. And I think that that's a critical component as we're thinking about, those things that can help us with those healthy financial habits. So I would like to open up this question to all the panelists. When we talk about some key financial habits or practices, what have you found that has been useful that people can adopt to start to begin building generational wealth for future generations?
Ebony, can I go back on the last question that you just asked about
Sure.
estate planning and real estate?
Absolutely. My apologies. Go ahead, Brandy.
That's okay. No worries. I just wanted to add in there that estate planning when you own property is a must. It is so important that you figure out what is going to happen to this property if you are no longer here, whether you're putting that property in a trust, whether you are deeding that property over to somebody, because I have seen so many times when our people do not have things in place and that property goes to the courts and now it's in probate and it's held up for 4 or 5, 6 months because there's 5 kids fighting over the property because the parent didn't put the proper things in place. So making sure that you have those power of attorney set up, that you have a living will, that you have those properties totally written out, signed and executed by an attorney on how you want it to go. Because then the other thing happens is somebody might pass away and none of the children are financially able to take over the house, maintain it. And now you're losing a house that's been in your family for 30 or 40 years that has been refinanced over and over again. And now that's a portion of the generational wealth that has been let fall to the wayside. So it's super important that we understand that when you have a home, I don't care if you paid $30,000 for it or $3 million for it, you need to have these things in place to protect that piece of property when you are no longer here. And then that way everybody knows what's going on, who's supposed to get the house, and what steps are taken to ensure that that house remains in your family. I see so many times people lose grandma's house and you're like, it's heartbreaking. So I think in that takes out a gap from us, while we're working so hard to build generational wealth, and we lose a piece of property that was meant to help us along that path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to jump in because what you're saying, Brandy, is so important because that goes for owning physical businesses too.
Mm-hmm.
What happens, I've seen it in Cincinnati and in the region where, 50 years ago, especially I've seen it in certain industries like construction where there's been a legacy of someone that owned it and the children never wanted it. And the sad part is that it goes away. What happens to that owner? Some of them can't step away if they get sick, let alone if something happens to them, to really think about when you're planning to start a business, whether that's virtual or physical, what happens to the business if you're not there? To put that as part of your plan. And, that's why having advisors, some folks, put it in that they succession is that they'll sell it or they merge with someone, but put that in your plan because it shouldn't end when you're gone. If you're truly talking about the next generation, of keeping, some income from a business to continue.
I would like to add something to that. Unfortunately, I've gone through 2 estates with losing my parents. So it's definitely an interesting situation in how males and females look at estate planning differently. Coming from the same generation was mind-boggling. So, it's like my dad felt that he was going to be here forever because he was a part of that generation. But he did enough to make sure that we had no issues, but he didn't take it to the nth degree of really making sure everything was spelled out. So then my mother overemphasized her time of estate planning to the degree that it was like almost a monthly activity, because going back to the late 90s and going into 2000, to Jackie's point, the laws and statutes were changing like all the time. So you really had to make sure that you had the right financial advisor team to really assist in making sure what she wanted to do, for my brother and I, as we continue to move forward in our organization. So the one thing that I would say is, hindsight is everything. over planning, there is never enough when it comes to estate planning, but having that financial team is just like you setting costs away for buying new equipment or for training or other parts of your business. I mean, it has to be incorporated with everything else in order to make you be able to move or to run smoothly and to move forward.
Yeah, I think that those are all great points, and kind of going back to we talked when we were talking about being uncomfortable. I think that this is an uncomfortable topic. And I think that that's why many people may operate in avoidance, right? But I think it's important for us to have the discussions. And I think platforms like this and other opportunities where people have to at least have the conversation. Because a lot of times, oftentimes these things aren't planned, and we need to be able to, protect our investments, and if we're trying to really pass down generational wealth, that's going to be a critical component, of doing that. So thank you, everyone who weighed in on that, because that is very important. So now as we segue to some key financial habits or practices, we talked about having a discussion regarding estate planning. What are some other financial habits or practices that you all have found useful that people can start adopting? We recognize that everybody is on different, paths or of their journey, but I know that you all have something that you can share for everyone. So I would like you all to feel free to come off of mute and share what are some of those key practices that you have found beneficial for you. So Charlotte, I see that you're pinned, so we can go ahead and start with you, and then we'll pass it to Janelle after that.
One of the things that's really important, we talk about relationships, is there's still entrepreneurs that we coach that still work out of a shoebox. So, because of trust. But I would say many of us may have relationships with banks, but let the banks, especially if you're an entrepreneur, know that you want to start a business and that you have started a business. So reach out to your bank, credit union, whatever financial institution that you have a relationship with, and introduce yourself to a small business banker. And not just the person you're going in to cash your check or your savings account. Take advantage of the resources and the services and educational support that they also offer if you have a good relationship with their branch. But, get to know whoever is managing, who works with businesses that could be a good resource, because that relationship, I would say, get to know that person when you don't need money. So they can be an advocate for you.
Right.
And also talk to your team in terms of financial empowerment.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that plug too. All right, I'll go with Janelle next.
I mean, one thing that I find critical after, living through what I have is the communication. Having these discussions about when you're gone is not something that typically in our community that happens. Whereas in some of the majority auto dealership families, especially in my industry, they're having those conversations with their next generations and down. And I think that's where, going back to that being uncomfortable, some people may say, well, it doesn't matter what happens after I'm gone, I'm not going to be here. But to Brandy's point, then you get into probate, you could get into probate or a lot, even more circumstances that you don't want to go through when you're grieving for a loved one. So they are hard conversations to have, but that's where, I have gone, when my father passed, I was 27 years old. He was only 62. So running our company was something I always wanted to do, but did not think it would be happening at 27. So naturally, I had the opportunity to have a lot of conversation with other friends of his peers, that, hey, you're in the same age bracket, you have kids that are younger than me, but what if something happens unexpectedly to you? And I've had those similar conversations with now as we continue to get older, with other friends of mine who now have their own children and developing their wealth. So it does, it's something that we take for granted, And that's, is that C word, communication, because it can be a true asset or a Waterloo if you don't handle it properly.
Yeah, communicating is definitely the game changer, but you have to do it. Okay, Jackie, what are some key financial habits or practices that you have found useful?
I believe in being a continuous learner and then finding which way of learning works best for you. So if you're a reader, I like to read 7 or 8 different newspapers, because I just like those different perspectives. If it's more audiobooks, there are a couple things I get on audiobooks because I think I absorb it better. YouTube videos. I mean, I think you just have to find a way that you can absorb information and just consistently do it. Just try to say, hey, let me learn something new every week. Let me just pick up a new tool. That's really what it is. It's a tool for your tool belt. You never know where you're going to need it, but it's just always good to have it and be ready. So that I think that just works wonders. And you'll really discover, because you'll go down that rabbit hole. It's like a rabbit hole. It's like Netflix, right? You watch that one movie, then they come with that next recommendation. Next thing you know, you're watching another. Same thing with financial literacy. You're going to come across a term, a topic that you're going, I have no idea what this is. And it's going to lead you to something else. And I think with that, you'll be surprised at how quickly you'll pick things up and the difference it'll make in your journey.
All right, great. Thank you for that. Brandy, key practices.
So I'm going to go back to the basics. For me, what has really, really worked is just simply creating a budget. No matter what your income is, whether you're making $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year, creating a budget that you can stick to and really just pinpointing what your goals are. What do you need to save for? Are you saving for a down payment on a house? Are you saving because you need to pay off a car in order to get your DTI a little bit more balanced? What are the goals that you're saving for? And create that budget. I was never good with budgets until I got married, and then my husband he budgets very well, and it has helped me tremendously. And it's something that we try to teach our older kids, that it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you make $200,000 a year and you don't have a budget, you will be broke. So you have to have a budget. So I think that is a key to financial success in all stages of life.
Yeah, that's one thing that my husband always says, is not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And budgeting is the first part of that. And our Financial Empowerment Center provides one-on-one coaching and will help you develop your budget free. So at the end of this, we'll be sharing that information out. Or Tracy, if you want to go ahead and drop in the chat how someone can connect with the team to get that jump started, that will be wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right. No problem. Thank you. All right, Pat, if you can just bring it on home.
Oh my goodness, I don't know about bringing it home, but I'll bring it to where I've been. Create multiple streams of income. Even if it's just a side job that can fund the dream that you are trying to develop while you're working to develop it. That is one point. The other point has already been made by other panelists, is research. And there is no reason for anyone not to get literate in subjects you might be interested in. And just as Jackie was saying, you start with a little bit of it, and then before you know it, you're down this wormhole and that wormhole, and all of a sudden you go from knowing nothing to at least having a conversational knowledge so that you can seek out other people to talk to. Research is our friend, and you can find out sitting in the comfort of your own home what you might want to do, what you're not interested in doing, enough so that you can launch out. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, you generally have to give something to get something. And if you research and find this might be it, the moment I sat down with my friend who was a consultant after I'd retired and was trying to figure out how do I make a difference in my community, the minute I saw her consulting, I knew what it was. And I was lucky because that was within a year of my retiring and knowing this is what I want to go after. And I started small, working with her, developing that second stream of income, and put that aside for it to fund that dream that one day I would have a consulting practice. 3 years after I was working with her, I launched my own practice. So not only did I get the practical experience of consulting by working for her with her, I also was ready to start and had a nice little nest egg to start when the time came. So multiple streams of income and research what you think you might be interested in.
Thank you so much, Patricia, or Pat, I should say. It looks like we lost Ebony temporarily, but this is good timing because this is the time for our second break to hear from our audience. We're so glad you came tonight. And Destiny, I'm going to ask you, do we have any questions from Zoom?
Yes, one person asked, how long is your entrepreneurial program and what is the cost? I believe they're talking about the Urban Leagues program.
Yeah, Charlotte, that is tailor-made for you, lady.
Well, there's several. Good question. So just to let you know that I can't emphasize that the request for business coaching does not cost you anything. It's free. So that's just to let you know that, to be able to sit in front of someone. As far as some of our programs, most of our programs are funded. We go through a vetting process, but there's no initial cost for you to participate. Part of it is to really vet and see where you are in terms of your stage of the business. So I would say I put the link in the chat so that you could see the different programs that we do have. So for instance, we're recruiting for, if you're a food entrepreneur or in the food industry, we have a program, it's called the PepsiCo Food Entrepreneurship Program, and it is an intense multi-week program. You can apply. We're going to be opening up and launching another class in the fall, in September. So if you're interested, I would say, to apply. The nice thing about that is that at the end of that, if you complete the session, you're eligible for a $10,000 grant. So it's very, very intense. It's weekly, but that's one opportunity and we've had over 30 businesses that have graduated from that program from around the region over the last 3 years. That's just an example of, we have an African-American business development program for startups as well as for growth-oriented businesses. And I would say, give us a call, contact us, and we'll be happy to sit down with you and talk with you about the program. So those are just some examples. There's also on the website, if you are in the Dayton, the city of Dayton area, there is a resiliency fund. If you're looking for access to capital, there are grants that are available that range from $2,500 to $10,000 for businesses that are located within the city of Dayton that you can, and that's actively going on. So you can apply for that as well. So just to let you know, I'm putting a plug in there, but there's resources financially as well as educationally to apply. And most of those are no cost, just your time and the application process and to get access to that information.
Thank you so much. That was a fabulous and informative answer. Ebony has informed me that she's having power issues at home. And so we're just going to continue because we are nearing the end of our program. Dominique, are there any questions from the Facebook crowd?
Hey, we don't have any questions, but what we do have is the Urban League showing up and showing out over here with Tiara from Dayton. We have Benita, we have Russell, our people business partner. We have somebody from Italy on here. So we got people showing up and just commenting, and they're loving the content. So
yes, and I've been looking at the numbers on Facebook, and we're looking great out there, and people are coming and going, and it's been great to see the response. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we are nearing the end of our program. If we did not get a chance to answer your question, we will share your questions with the panelists and make sure that we get back to you. After this program, we will also be sharing information with you. And I'm going to share my screen now with the panelists' contact information, because we want you guys to be able to reach out to these panelists with your questions, because we have so much knowledge amongst us right now.
Tracy,
And Facebook is not, PowerPoint is not, there we are.
Tracy,
Yes.
there was a question in the chat. Someone was asking about estate planning, what the cost could put. They're looking for maybe a referral or potentially maybe the cost. Maybe if someone could maybe share what that particular type of service might run for someone who wants to pursue something like that.
Wonderful. Would any of our panelists like to address that question?
That, I mean,
Perhaps
that's kind of a open door question, because it really, every situation is different. So if someone wants to reach out to me directly, I can try to assist them depending on if they're in Cincinnati or Dayton, because you do need to find the right person in terms of starting on your quest for estate planning, but it's kind of hard to say exactly what that cost would be at this point without knowing industry, what type of, where you are within your life cycle, your assets, and those kind of things that get kind of personal.
Apologies, Janelle. I heard you talking, but I, for some reason, could not find you.
Did everyone else hear me, or do I need to repeat that?
I
No,
heard
we heard you.
now.
We heard
We heard you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great answer. Great
Yeah, it
answer.
was a great answer. There's another question in the chat about putting your home into a trust to pass it on. Is that something to consider? And that was noted in the chat a bit ago. So I just wanted to tee that up if somebody had a response to that, or that was a contact. We put my parents' home in a trust when my mom died. So it is there to kind of protect and secure the asset for my dad, who's not in a place to make good decisions about it.
I'll piggyback off of that. I think that's it's a great thing to consider. As soon as you purchase a house, start thinking about putting it in a trust if you're not in a position or you don't know who you may deed the house to or quit claim the house to if something were to happen to you. But definitely look into those options.
Excellent.
Wonderful, wonderful. So,
thank you for lifting that up too. I think any other questions that we have in the chat, we'll make sure that we will follow up with those responses. So thank you for that. And we'll share out the panelist contact information at the end of this. So thank you again for that. All right, so as Tracy mentioned, Tracy, I don't know if you had the opportunity to ask the last and final question.
no, I did not.
Okay, so really quick, I know one of the recurring themes that we talked about is curiosity, and we need to get curious and become curious about our own financial health and just financial health in general. The question for you all is, what books, resources, or podcasts, what is a go-to book or podcast that you can recommend that you have found to be inspirational that others, you believe others can benefit from? So
I was just going to jump in, and this is Charlotte. I gave this book out to recent graduates of our African American Business Development Program, and it's called Traction. It's a great book. It's been around, and it's called Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business, and it's by Gino Wickman, Wickman. You could get it anywhere, Amazon bookstores, online, but it is really great to really open your eyes. And it's not about a book on business theory. It really is a great resource. So I recommend that one.
Apologies, Charlotte. I could not find you. I heard your voice, but could not find you to spotlight you.
Oh, that's okay.
All right, Jackie.
I would recommend, there is a new organization that was formed called Black Women on Boards. You guys probably have seen it on social media. And one of the founders, Marlene Santil, she has a monthly newsletter and it's called Lifting as We Climb. And it's really just interviews with this different people from the industry. And they just always have some little nuggets that I found really helpful. It's a short read. It's usually, a page of her asking 3 or 4 questions. But I would definitely recommend that. And I'll put her name in the chat with the title.
Great, thank you for that. Janelle? You're on.
Sorry. I actually just started something new, which I thought the title grabbed me. What got you here won't get you there. And it's by Marshall Goldsmith. So it's just trying to, we don't need to be complacent because we always need to be thinking of that next step. So it's been good and an easy read.
Great, thank you. Brandy?
For me, there's a book called That One Thing. It's a book by Gary Keller. And what it's teaching you in this book is how to focus on that one thing that you're really good at, how to put all your efforts and your intentions into that one thing, and also learning how to divide your 80-20, spending, 20% of your time on the big things that are really going to propel you into your craft, instead of, playing around with all the small things that are not going to help you in your craft. But That One Thing is a really good book.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, Pat.
Yes, I had to pull it off of my shelf, and it is called Everyday Greatness. And it's an old book by Stephen Covey, but I find it still speaks to finding that one thing that you are passionate about and is your passion point, and finding a way to find what you're best at. And so it's called Everyday Greatness by Stephen Covey. It's one that I periodically reread. I've read it a number of years ago, but I open it, let it fall open, and find pearls of wisdom within that book. But there's so many great podcasts and books on the internet, so much research worthy. I would just encourage you to find whatever medium speaks to you, whether it is audible books, whether it is me, like the old-fashioned turn the page kind of book. I love to feel of a book in my hand. So find what speaks to you. There's some awfully good podcasts out there, and there's so many that I'm struggling to find one that I can stick with because podcasts are fairly new to me. I kind of found them over the pandemic, and I've been trying to find one that I want to stick with. But there's some awfully interesting ways to learn now that were not there before.
Thank you. And thank you for putting that in the chat. I think that these are great resources and a good starting points. So I know we are almost at time. We've covered a lot of territory, and I know there's just so much more that we can talk about. But as we close this out, I want to give the opportunity for each of our panelists to give us quick, less than 1 minute, to some closing thoughts, starting with Jackie. I would like to get everyone's thoughts, closing thoughts, and just any jewels or knowledge that you can bestow to the audience. So Jackie, starting with you, and then we'll transition to Brandy.
No, I would always say you've already made one of the biggest steps by attending something like this. Taking advantage of the resources available. You've had a ton of resources offered. Take that step, to continue to engage, to continue to participate in these types of forums, to broaden your knowledge in certain areas, and continue to connect and learn who's out there in the industry. I think everybody's on here because they want to be helpful. And I think we sometimes think we have to go it alone. And you have a whole community out there that wants to see you succeed, wants to see you thrive. And again, just take advantage of these opportunities. And thank you for allowing me to be here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom. All right, Brandy, what are your closing thoughts?
Don't get sidetracked on your goals, and don't let outside noises get to you. People saying, you can't do this, that doesn't make sense, that's never going to work. Stay 10 toes down all the time on your goals. If you fall down 10 times, get up 11. Every successful person has failed over and over again to get where they are today. We've all made mistakes. Learn from your mistakes, continue to ask questions. Like she said, use your resources, call your board of directors that you have, and just keep grinding, keep pushing forward, pay attention to your money, get on a budget and stay on track.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for inviting me to participate in this this session, this brain exchange. I just want the audience not to forget that we probably don't, remember that wealth creation and wealth management has been part of our lives. Think about, every time you've tried to save for something that you wanted to do or wanted to go, it's a little bit of wealth creation. As you got older, you probably created wealth for your churches by tithing, clubs, affinity groups. You forget that, we raise money and do wealth creation. But it's your time. It's your time to really think about personal wealth creation and how to benefit yourself, the power, of having your money and make it work for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Janelle?
Brandy kind of stole my thunder on the don't let others deter you from your goals, because unfortunately there's always going to be those that don't want to see you succeed. And that's where I go back to, you really have to find that trust team to help you navigate through your goals so you can stay on track. Because yes, there are a lot of people that do want you to succeed, but there are those that will continue to try to deter you from that. So it's just something that just really resonates with me, especially with what I had to go through at the age and the industry that I'm in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. All right, and Pat.
Yeah, I would like to leave you with, find what you're passionate about. And once you find that passion, it doesn't feel like work. My core is a servant leader. But a servant leader doesn't mean you're unpaid. Find what you want to do. And then once you identify that and lean into that and talk to people that can help you better understand how to more effectively go at that thing that you're passionate about, stay your course, because there will be ups and there will be downs. But there is, in fact, a young man in my class gave me a mantra that has become my mantra. And it says that if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. And that so clearly speaks to how I feel about the work that I do. It is my honor to serve. So you have honored me by inviting me to be a part of this beautiful and important panel and sharing such wonderful points with so many people who I hope will follow up on those points and find their own passion point. So I thank you for the opportunity to be of service.
Well, thank you for just, sharing your knowledge with us. And thanks to each and every one of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to empower us tonight and with this life-changing information about pathways for generational wealth. And I think your insight and your perspective is spot on. And I'm honored to moderate the panel, and I remain honored and humbled to be a part of just this amazing opportunity to share this necessary information out with the community. So thank you for allowing me to moderate this discussion. And Tracy, I will pass it to you to close us out.
Thank you so much, Ebony. This has been an amazing, amazing night, an amazing conversation. It might have sounded like a cliche when we said this was a power-packed panel, but we have seen that tonight. These women have so much rich wisdom and knowledge and depth. And it has been our privilege tonight, ladies, to hear from you, to hear. Thank you so much for your generosity in sharing. I am transfixed. I mean, I'm taking notes. I'm writing notes. I'm gonna go listen to the replay. I'm gonna watch this on YouTube because this was too much good information to miss. And so again, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. I'd like to ask Maria Rutherford Long, one of our key partners at Fifth Third Bank, the one we work with more closely. We love you, Royce, and you are top, but Maria is our homie. So Maria, I'd like to ask you if you have any closing remarks, and if you'd like to pass it over to Royce, fine, but let's hear from you.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, all of you wonderful, wonderful women. The power is palpable. I am so grateful. I'm going to do exactly what you said and watch this later because it was so well done and so heartfelt. But I wanted to just thank you again for joining us and let you all know that we're going to have our first in-person Wealth Building Wednesday. And make sure I'm correct, on August 31st at the Urban League. And we are so excited. We're going to do a candid conversation with someone who has built wealth and is passing it on to the next generation. So we're going to continue on this theme of building pathways to wealth. And so we're so excited. That's what I want to say. Royce, final words?
Final words. I told you. I told you they were coming at you tonight, didn't I? They were coming at you and for you. We just are tremendously thankful for all of the panelists. We just have all learned. I've got a lot of notes over here. And I appreciate the time that you've carved out for this insightful discussion, and you've really you just laid it out there where the goats can get it, right? And we just really appreciate being able to make it accessible to us and informative, while at the same time giving us something to take away from this discussion here. So for now, we'll just tune out, but we have not tuned away from this topic. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for Urban League. Thank you, panelists.
Absolutely. And thank you, audience, for joining us tonight. It's been our privilege to host you, and we look forward to the next time that we can be together. If you did not get your question answered, we will make sure that the panelists receive your question and you will receive a response. We will also share with you this panelist contact information. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions going forward. And with that, we will say good night to you all. Thank you for joining us for this session of Wealth Building Wednesdays. It was a night to remember. And thank you for joining us.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.